Now, more people over the age of 50 are re-entering the dating world than ever before.
But it doesn't come without its challenges, so life coach Mark Fennell is here to give us his top tips for finding that romantic connection.
Yeah, that's a big ask now, but
big
I'll
ask,
try.
innit?
I'll try.
Look, you're the man for the
If
job.
they fail, it's on you.
It's on you.
know,
It's all
listen.
your fault. Obviously, the internet's been a buzz lately between over the budding romance between
Pamela and
Liam Neeson. Now, some people have speculated that it might be just a showman's, but regardless of which, isn't that just nice to see that the internet's obsessing over a slightly older couple?
Well, I think it is nice. Look, is it real or not? We don't know, but it does have the hallmarks of it real. I think it might be real in that respect because we've seen where he talked about her previously. She was making him cookies on set and sourdough bread and the whole lot. And then when we see them in public, they do have that dynamic where you could say, but now they are both actors as well. But I think we want to embrace it as being real. I think we want to believe that it's real. And I think it's nice to see because so often and so rarely we see people find love later in life, you know, a second chance or a third chance.
Yeah.
So often, rarely we see that. And it's nice to see it play out, I think, for both of them because they both come across, I don't know them, but they both come across really, really nice as well. So it's nice to see it play out.
It does seem genuine.
Yeah, Liam Neeson doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would say, listen, let's do a show.
Just for the sake of it.
I don't think so.
He doesn't strike me as that
He's too
kind
legit.
of person.
He's legit. I
If
don't
there's
think
someone else, I'd be like, they're promoting a movie, of course.
And he
they're going
doesn't
to be
need
playing
to.
it up.
He doesn't need to.
Exactly.
You know?
But also, in her early career, like she was manipulated so much. And,
Absolutely.
And she's at the point where she doesn't give a fiddler.
She's well wide. There's no
yes, she
flies on
is.
our Pamela.
Well, wide. I don't think she'd be too keen on a showman.
Also, she's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Is there any wonder he'd be falling for her? I think she's stunning.
So listen, he's I think, you know, he's punching, but I think it's great.
Okay, but dating later in life, getting into a new romance later in life, it does have its challenges.
It does. And there's a 31% of people over 50 are now single. And that has increased over the last, every 10 years, it's increasing by 5%. So we're getting a much bigger, you know, cohort of people who are out there who are single. And I think the assumption is that people say, well, when you're over 50, over 60, the younger demographic think, you can't be off dating at that age. But no, that has changed. Because, I mean, the average lifespan now is 85, 90 even. So why shouldn't you date? And I think it's a social norm we need to kind of break down because 1 in 5 people now over the age of 55 have a dating app on their phone. So I think it used to be 1 in 12. So you've seen with these statistics, it's all changing. And I think we need to start embracing it because we do have an ageism. We do have this thing where like, sure, look, you're over that age. You shouldn't be looking for love. If you're looking for love, forget age is but a number. Let's be real. But if you're looking for love, it's never too late to find it, you know? And I think that's the message that we need to start reinforcing because when we see the movies, it's always young people. When we see Love Island, you know, it's not like 2 70-year-olds on you know, recoupling or we're exclusive, you know. Mary, we're going exclusive.
There was that show. Was it Date My Mum, Date My Dad?
Yeah, I know. So I don't know how the viewers were.
I watched that. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
But this is the thing. So we do have this thing. It's kind of like, you know what, we love to see older, you know, an older person if they're 80 holding hands. But you don't see an 80-year-old taking out dentures and going kissing on TV. It's not something you want to watch necessarily.
Hang on, Mary.
You don't want to hear it.
Joe, we should go exclusive. You know. So, but I think this is the problem where we have this problem. But we expect people not to. Here's an interesting statistic: 71% of over 60-year-olds said that intimacy, sex, is perfectly important and well needed when you're over 60. So come on, come on. Of
course it is.
We're not mad for the
But we presume it's not. Like not we, but a lot of people younger will say, you can't be doing that. It's like, you know, the last thing you want is to walk in on your parents, you know, up to whatever. You know, if that ever happens, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
It happened to me one time. I won't get into that on the telly now.
No, you can't just leave
we have a while on this section. Tell us more.
Let's maybe what? Okay. I was 8 years old. I walked in and the covers were moving. I walked back out and I asked my dad, what were you doing? And he says, you know the way your mother loves tickling? I was only tickling her, you know. Yeah. And then years later I found out it wasasn't tickling.
Okay, we were only joking. We didn't actually want the
But move
detail,
on.
But thanks anyway.
Quickly.
Right.
Here's the therapy, Martin.
But look, when you reach a certain age, you stop caring what people think.
Yeah.
But you do have to care about what your children think.
This is the thing, on a more serious note,
older children can find it more challenging than younger kids who find it easier to adapt.
And this is the thing. And on a serious note, it is a hard adjustment because one of the first things people fear when they've found love later in life is telling the family, the people close to the circle. Because obviously there's going to be judgment and they're not going to be like the previous husband or wife was. Yeah. And so there is this kind of, I've got to broach this. So a couple of little tips around it, and there is ways you can do this strategically. Communication is key. And sometimes saying that, look, you know, I've met someone, we're getting on. Don't just bring them around for dinner all of a sudden, because that can be too much, because the house is nostalgic as well if it is being the house at the home. So don't just bring them around to the house, but do something as a collective, you know, maybe going for the walk or going for the coffee, something where you're out and about, a place that doesn't have emotional attachment to it, and introduce that person that way, and then that person goes home. You know, and you can start slowly introducing it that way, walking the dogs together and bringing maybe family in. So start that way. Communication is key. Reinstating the boundaries. Say, look, this person is not a replacement of X, but this is a person who's just come into my life. And as well, when we're later in life and so forth, and whatever the age might be, it's understanding that you're established now as a person. It's not going to be like the 20-something. And reinforce that with the adult children. Say, look, I know who I am. You know, this is not a person I need to have in my life. It's a person I want to have in my life by choice, because they make me feel happy or whatever. And communicating that it's not a replacement of your mother or your father. That's really, really, really important. But one of the things I'll also say is it can be very hard to re-trust again. If a couple if say, for example, the first marriage or whatever relationship dissolved because of whatever reason, but there was a trust issue and so forth, or infidelity, it can be very hard for that person later on to trust again. But that doesn't mean you can't trust again. It just might be slower. But you've got to remember, you're a lot wiser than you were when you were 25, now that you're 55. And so you're not going to be, you know, once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
So give yourself that and allow yourself that space to slowly start trusting again, but at a pace that suits you. They're not going to be a replacement or someone that you're going to necessarily marry. It could be just an amazing friendship. So give yourself the space and the time.
Okay, so in a lot of cases, it is companionship.
It is companionship, yeah, and it's that having that connection
with
that's
someone
different to your family. You know, it is having that connection. And we, as humans, we're social creatures. We do need it. Some people later in life maybe kind of, I'm happy, me and the dog and the cat were happy. You know, some people don't require it so much, or they have a social life, or they have close friends or neighbours. But most people do need someone on that closer level, that inner circle.
A human interaction.
Yeah,
of course,
connect.
we can be a very lonely nation.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see so many of examples of it, especially in rural Ireland.
It's 100%. Because, you know, you have neighbours and they're like, you know, a kilometre away or whatever. So, we do need that person. And it's setting the boundaries for yourself. You might not need them in your life 7 days a week, but you might say, you know, it's lovely to have someone that 2 or 3 nights a week we hang out, or the weekends or whatever.
And if you both have your own gaff, how bad?
So, do you know?
You know what? You even have to have the sleepovers if you didn't want them.
So this is it, you can always go home.
There was actually, on the blending of the families, we actually have seen pictures from the press tour of Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson and their kids meeting.
Yeah.
I think Pamela, she's two lads who are both in their late 20s. And Liam as well. So it's nice that even in that setting, maybe it was like a nice informal way for them to kind of meet. And it just takes the pressure off.
It does take the pressure off. But I'm going to say there's a powerful tool that we don't talk enough about, and it's humour. You know, let's not take ourselves so serious, the situation as too serious, as much as we can. Have the laugh. If you have someone around, because humour, believe it or not, releases a thing called oxytocin. It's actually a chemical in the brain that helps us bond with people. So if you have someone who you're trying to introduce to your family and he's come over and he's going to have a laugh together, that person will introduce into that family a lot quicker. So having the laugh and not taking life too seriously. One of the things I'll mention though, and sometimes it needs to be touched on early on, is the financial arrangements. Because sometimes adult children will be saying, but what about the will now? And like, are you going to just will the house to this person? That does come up.
Think about that.
You know, that does come up. So having those conversations offside, if you feel they're warranted, depending on the person you're dealing with, is really important.
Yeah, I know. It's all about the land.
And there's always...
It's all about the field.
If you've road frontage there now, it's all
It's all about the field.
There's always an argument when wills are involved, isn't there, really?
Where there's a will, there's a relative. Mark, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, and thanks for having me share so much this morning.
Straight up on socials.
Right, coming up after the break, we're catching up with a rising Irish designer who's taking the celebrity world by storm.
We'll see you back here very shortly.